When people think of Yao Ming, the first thing that comes to mind is his height. At 7 feet 6 inches, he was one of the tallest players in NBA history. But focusing only on his size misses the real story. Yao wasn't just tall, he was skilled, disciplined, and extremely well trained. His success came from a demanding routine that combined old school fundamentals, intense repetition, and constant physical conditioning. Yao's journey started long before the NBA. In China, basketball training was strict and structured. From a young age, he followed a system that emphasized repetition and discipline. Practices were long, sometimes stretching for hours, and every movement was drilled again and again. Footwork, positioning, shooting form, nothing was left to chance. This early foundation shaped how Yao approached training for the rest of his career. A typical day for Yao during his peak years wasn't casual. It started early, often with light conditioning, just to wake up the body. For a player his size, maintaining mobility was critical. Unlike smaller players, he couldn't rely only on speed. He needed balance, coordination, and control. So even warm-ups had purpose: stretching, mobility drills, and light movement work to prepare his joints and muscles. Skill training was at the core of his routine. Yao spent a huge amount of time working on post moves. Unlike many big men who relied purely on strength, Yao developed finesse. He practiced hook shots, turnaround jumpers, and footwork patterns endlessly. One example often mentioned by coaches was how he would repeat the same move dozens, sometimes hundreds of times until it became automatic. Left block, right block, pivot, fade. Every variation had to feel natural. Shooting was another key part of his development. Despite being a center, Yao had a soft shooting touch. That didn't happen by accident. He trained mid-range jumpers regularly, focusing on consistency. Free throws were also a major focus. For a player of his height, maintaining a solid free throw percentage required constant repetition. He would often stay after practice just to take extra shots, refining his rhythm and form. Strength training played a huge role in his routine, but it was carefully managed. At his size, adding too much bulk could create problems for his joints. So instead of just lifting heavy weights, his program balanced strength with stability. Core exercises, controlled lifts, and resistance training helped him stay strong without losing mobility. His trainers focused on building support around his knees and ankles, areas that naturally carry more stress for taller athletes. Conditioning was one of the toughest parts of Yao's training. People often assume taller players don't need as much endurance, but that's not true at the professional level. Yao had to run the floor, defend, and stay active for long stretches. His conditioning work included running drills, repeated sprints, and game speed simulations. The goal wasn't just stamina, it was the ability to perform under fatigue without losing form. Another important part of Yao's routine was recovery. Because of the physical demands on his body, recovery wasn't optional, it was essential. Ice baths, massages, and stretching sessions were built into his schedule. He also paid attention to rest and nutrition. Maintaining his body weight, staying hydrated, and getting proper recovery time were all part of keeping him game ready. Film study added another layer to his training. Yao didn't rely only on physical work. He studied the game. He would watch opponents, learn their tendencies, and understand positioning. For a center, this was crucial. Knowing where to be on the court, when to move, and how to react could make a huge difference. This mental preparation complemented his physical training and made him a smarter player. One thing that stood out about Yao Ming was his consistency. He didn't train hard one day and relax the next. His routine was steady. Day after day, he followed the same disciplined approach. That consistency is what allowed him to compete at the highest level, even with the challenges that came with his size. However, his training also came with a cost. The physical strain on his body was intense. Playing year-round, both in the NBA and internationally, meant there was very little time for full recovery. Over time, injuries began to take a toll, especially on his feet and legs. Despite all the conditioning and preparation, the demands were simply too high for his body to sustain long-term. Even so, Yao's work ethic never changed. He continued to train, adapt, and push himself whenever he could. His commitment to improvement stayed the same, whether he was dominating in the paint or working through injuries. What makes Yao Ming's training routine special isn't just the exercises or drills, it's the mindset behind them. He understood his strengths and weaknesses,